Finding some old lace in an attic means different things to different people. Some might toss it into the closest garbage bin. Others would dream dreams and create something spectacular using the treasure of old lace. Today, we're going to share with you how to convert otherwise ordinary fabric, trim, or thread into designs that are destined to become heirlooms. Would you like to see things with a fresh perspective? Shall we begin? Welcome to my sewing room. This lady's blouse is absolutely beautiful. It is so tailored and it's sleeveless. And you know what I like about sleeveless blouses? I like to wear them in the summertime, of course, but in the wintertime when I wear a jacket, I love a sleeveless blouse because I really don't ever take my jacket off. The trim is what is so fascinating on this beautiful blue batiste blouse. Do you see the bias binding that's been flip-flopped, 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 flip-flopped? Very easy technique and very elegant and tailored. And then the laces, the lace insertions have been zigzagged down each side of the trim, the bias binding trim, and it closes with pearl buttons. Now let's just see how this is done. First of all, you're going to use the bias binder on your sewing machine to make your bias binding. Then two lines, parallel lines, and now when you get your bias binding, after having made the little marks, whatever distance you would like for them to be apart, then come over, and of course you can pin or tack, and then I'm going to simply flip-flop it. Some of you that have been lace shaping with me for a long time know about flip-flopping. And then you're going to finish it off, and next comes an extra stable lace finish. What that means is straight stitch your French lace insertion down on both sides, then open it to the back, slit it down the middle, and either press, or sometimes you can just finger press it, press the pieces back, zigzag them down on top, and if necessary, go back and trim away any excess. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today Nina McVeigh. Nina is an educator for Bernina of America. Nina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha.
That beautiful blouse.
Thank you. Very easy and fun to do. As you said, the first thing I'm going to do is cut my bias strips. It's important that it's bias, so it goes through our bias binder, and then just sew it out to create this fine finished bias binding. I'm then going to either glue or use my small little applique pins to pin that down when I get to my fabric. I am going to draw two lines, whatever distance apart you want. This is 1.5 inches, so that works very well. And then I'm going to mark about 1.5 inches down each piece here. So then when I lay my bias down, I'm going to bring it over to the line where I've marked it, and I'm going to use one of those little applique pins or glue stick if you'd like. And as you said, just flip-flop it and cross it as I go down this piece. Once I've put that all on my fabric, then I've added that French lace in that extra stable technique that you talk about. So again, very simple, as you said, very elegant, but very simple. What makes this so easy is the bias binder. Now I've attached the bias binder to the sewing machine. And this will fit on any of our machines, so there's no trick to it. The bias binder and a special foot that goes along with that bias binder.
Fascinating.
I've loaded the binder with my piece of bias. Now, if I'm just sewing bias and I'm not attaching it to anything, I want to make sure that I move my needle position over to the folded edge of the bias so it's not stitching right in the middle. Once it's loaded, it's as simple as sewing and just allowing that to sew right through the machine.
That is completely fascinating, Nina. Just put it in there, fold it, and put it underneath, and there's perfect bias binding.
That's right.
And it's already stitched, ready to use.
And this is the narrow bias binder. There are several different sizes. This is the narrowest one because we are using that fine fabric.
It is made and stitched, and you didn't even have to press it. Well, you press the fabric flat, of course, at the beginning.
But you're right. I don't have to press this. It's all ready to go.
And stitched and ready to go.
And then this is where I would take that fabric that's marked, and I would lay it across from one mark to the other, flip it, and what I want to happen right here is I want this fold to be just over the drawn line on the fabric, so that when I use that technique to put my lace down, it actually catches that fold in that seam line.
Well, I'd like to show our viewers, if I can get unhooked from this lace jacket here, I would like to show our viewers one more time this beautiful. Now, you say you did bring it over where the lace really just went over the very edge of the little flip-flop.
Just
now, you know,
over
I call
the folded
that flip-flopping,
edge.
folded edge. And then your beautiful buttons. This is truly elegant and very, very tailored. Yes. It could be worn under any, very tailored and very feminine at the same time. This is absolutely beautiful, Dinah, and I thank you so much, and for showing us that wonderful bias binder.
I love it.
What a magic foot, well, attachment, I guess we would call it. And now Nina has some beautiful sewing inspirations to share with you. Nina, this quilt is beautiful. Would you tell us about it?
Sure. This was very fun to do, Martha. The applique in this quilt was done in the embroidery unit. So very simple, very precise.
Oh, I love it. Now what about these wonderful leaves in the middle?
Free motion couching with a special foot. We just put our cord through the foot and do free motion, and it follows us wherever we go.
And more of this wonderful embroidery hoop.
Yes.
And your diamonds. How did you get your diamonds on?
Those are heat set.
Those are heat set
Swarovski crystals.
This is just beautiful. The colors make me so happy. And this one is equally fabulous. And this one is?
Same thing. It's that applique in the hoop, and on these pieces of fabric, I decorated it with decorative stitches as I appliqued it. But again, done in embroidery.
And all the beautiful colors and the bright, are those metallic threads?
No, they're
just have a little bit of a pretty shine.
Yeah, they have a nice sheen to them. They are a polyester embroidery thread on that one.
And these wonderful, wonderful squares here. Actually, is this a wall hanging?
These are, yes,
wall hanging. Look at
hangings.
this. Tell us about this now.
This again is applique, but this is free motion applique, raw edge, and
I love the raw edge.
Yeah, the fun of these, of this one and the next couple, are the decorative threads. And the
now
decorative
here are
stitches.
The metallics.
Yes, that's metallic thread. Nice
and this
shine.
is raw edge again.
Yes. And
Pretty
I used
colors.
some of the pretty decorative threads in the machine to just decorate it.
Makes me happy to look at that one too. Oh, how beautiful. And this is, of course, in the embroidery machine.
Yes.
And this is the raw edge. And feather stitch, except that is just beautiful, beautiful. It's not feather stitch, it's triple feather stitch.
Yes,
is kind of
it
what
is.
I call that.
Yes,
Can't think of exactly the right name, but it is so wonderful.
And then there's bobbin play on some of these too. So where you see that heavier thread, that comes from the bobbin.
And once again, a touch of metallic. Well, Nina, these are just beautiful, and I'm sure our viewers will enjoy this inspiration.
Oh, thank you, Martha.
And now Nina has a so quick, so easy idea to share with you. Nina, that is the most adorable little potpourri bag.
Isn't this fun?
Oh, it is.
Very quick and easy, and the steps are very easy. I simply used a purchased blank linen bag, and the little bag had a ribbon through the top, so that normally you would take this little bag and pull it tight at the top that way. But I used an alphabet from our embroidery software, and this is called Secret Garden. So I chose the alphabet letter that I wanted and centered it in this little frame. And on the back side of the bag, because I knew I was going to fill it with potpourri, I wanted to put a little organza circle in here so the smells could come out, and the potpourri was very pretty on the inside. So I have drawn 2 circles, a larger one, and then of course an inner circle, and laid a piece of organza on top of that circle, and then used a wing needle at the sewing machine and my what one might call a blanket stitch or a pin stitch, whichever you are used to calling it, and sewed that circle, both of those circles. On the outside, I trimmed away the organza right along that outer circle, and on the inside, of course, I trimmed away the linen along the inside circle. I then sewed buttonholes, 6 of them, across the top. The important thing here is that these buttonholes match up. Sewed 3 buttons on the front side. Now again, it's important that those match up so that when you close this back up and sew the seam across the bottom and down the side, that this then flips over and you button each button through the 2 buttonholes.
That is such a wonderful project. And I think it, oh, you're going to show it to us again.
Yeah, I'm going to just show you again where those buttons.
2 buttonholes. Oh, Nani, that is an adorable project. Thank you so much. Do you know, wouldn't that be a sweet gift for a bridesmaid's luncheon?
Oh, it would be
or
wonderful.
Or for any kind of a birthday gift, or really almost any kind of graduation. It's really pretty.
Just a nice extra to slip into any box, gift box.
Yes. That's what's so much fun about sewing. We have options of doing little extras or big projects. Nina, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now we have some construction tips to share with you. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today Lezette Thomason. Lezette is the owner of Children's Corner Patterns. Lezette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. Today I'm going to show you how to sew the armholes of a lined garment that has a very short back placket. I have one finished here. This is the finished armhole of the dress and the lining. This is a little dress with smocking. Next to it is the same little dress with smocking, cut short with corduroy pants for winter. Now, I'm going to take a dress here. I'm going to turn it around and show you this little short back placket. It is already finished with buttons and buttonholes. Now, to sew those armholes, the easiest way is to separate the dress and the lining and to put it over your arm, slide the dress down to your fingertips, and to separate the dress and the lining at the shoulder seam on one side, one in one hand, one in the other, and open up that shoulder seam. Then take the rest of the dress top, neck, and other shoulder, slide them down on that opened shoulder seam, put the dress right sides together at the shoulder seam, and sew it. So first we have to pin it, and we'll put a pin there and then pin the other armhole all the way around. And I have one here to show you that is completely pinned and ready to sew. And now I'm going to sew this for you.
Straight stitch.
This is a straight stitch using a 1/4 inch foot. The foot that I'm using has a flange on the edge of it to keep my 1/4 inch seam straight. Now, after I finish this, then I would trim that seam to about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
So I'm just going to very quickly sew this all the way around, and I'm going to show you how we are going to turn this to the right side. Now, I'm going to stand back up so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to separate dress from lining, and I'm going to go up through a shoulder seam, and I'm going to start pulling that dress all the way through at the shoulder.
Wow.
Now, this is going to look like a total mess, wadded up mess, and you're going to be wondering what you have done wrong. But if you will just keep on pulling, the dress will pop out in just a minute. Just keep pulling. This one's being a little contrary, but you just have to be persistent. This one's being very persistent.
Aha, it did.
There, we have pulled it through now.
Perfect.
And we have one armhole perfectly sewn. Now, our next thing would be to press that seam. And here I have a little outfit for you to see. This armhole with a little bit of gingham trim is completely finished and pressed, and it is grouped with a pair of little pants. There'll be elastic here, and you will do this armhole in the exact same manner.
Lezette, thank you so very much. That is a technique that really throws a lot of people, and you made it very easy, pulling it through that little bitty armhole. I love it.
Martha.
I love it. Thank you so much. And now we have some hand embroidery to share with you. I'm so pleased to have as my guest Wendy Schoen. Wendy is the designer for Petite Crochet Patterns. She's a regular contributor to Sew Beautiful magazine and a teacher at the Martha Pullen School of Art Fashion. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Martha. I brought with me this little sample today. This is a lid for just a regular sewing basket. Now, the stitch that I've used to do the monogram is called the trailing stitch. Trailing is pretty simple to do. It just takes a little bit of patience and time, of course. Anything handwork, of course, takes you a little time, but it's well worth it. So let me go ahead and show you how to get started. Now, you can see this is my design line. It's just a straight line. Trailing can be done in a circle or a curve, any shape, any line you want to put it on. What's important to note is that you're going to have a core thread that you're going to be couching down, and then you're going to have a working thread, which is the stitch that you're going to be actually stitching the core threads down with or over. Now, I'm using pearl cotton, but normally I would use stranded cotton or floche, and I like to use lots of different types of different strands of threads on the inside core, so I can cut them apart rather than using one solid piece of rope or string. So to begin, I'm going to take my thread with a waist knot, and I'm going to begin right on the design line with a few little back stitches. Now, these back stitches can be tiny. Remember, they're going to be hidden beneath the core threads. Another thing I'm doing is I'm using two different colors. I normally would not do that on my regular embroidery piece. I'm doing it so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to come up very close to the center line, position my threads, my core threads that is, where they're supposed to be, and then I'm going to sew around over to the other side of the design line. The first stitch needs to be very tight, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll hold the tension down and just take one little stitch on the line so that I don't lose the tension in that particular stitch. All right, now the next stitch is going to be right next to the first stitch and stitched around over to the other side. Now, notice I'm holding on to my thread ends. Well, if you did not have a seat frame or a table stand for your hoop, this would be very difficult to do. So I highly recommend you purchase one, or even if it's just a clamp that you can clamp your hoop to the table, whatever it takes, you just need to have a third hand on this stitch. So you want to get all your stitches nice and close, but not overlapping at all. So now what I want to do is I want to show you the next thing. We'll go to the next hoop. Okay, so this particular hoop shows trailing that is already in progress. As you can see, it's pretty solid number of threads here. They're one right next to the other, and they're very shiny. And this is very important. Trailing has to look shiny for it to be pretty. And it also has to be rounded. So when you go into the fabric, you're going to want to take the needle in at an angle, very close to the bottom, and then the same thing on the other side. Now, once you get all your trailing done, you need to tie them off, or tie off the ends. So I'm going to take my working thread up to the top. Now these threads need to go to the back. Now the best way to do that is with a little tool called a lasso. We call this a lasso in embroidery. And all it is just a piece of pearl cotton inside a very big eyed needle. And it can be any size needle as long as it's sturdy. We're going to take the lasso down into the fabric. Oh, and I neglected to tell you that you have two ends of the thread in the eye of the needle at the same time, and then a loop is remaining. So we're going to take it down underneath the fabric, leaving just the loop, and then all you need to do is place the end of the threads into the loop, just like this. Not the working thread though. And then pull down on the lasso. Give it one pop, pop, there we go. And then that pulls all the threads down to the back. And notice I'm gonna probably have to do it again because of that one little loop, but you'll know what to do next time. Now on the back, once the thread tails are in the back, then bring your working thread to the back and secure the ends by working over them. Now I've brought another type of trailing with me to show you very quickly. Now this is a trailing where you're doing the exact same thing, but you begin with a lot more threads. So this is for a heavier look. And in monogramming, this is very common. You'll start with a very wide amount of stitches, then separate the core threads into two sections and stitch them individually. And that's how that's done. So really, trailing is not very difficult at all, and anybody can do it.
Well, it is absolutely beautiful. And Wendy, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to share a piece from my vintage collection with you. Sometimes a very special gift is given to me. This beautiful blouse is a present to me from Lezette Thomason. When she came to tape television this year, she said, "Martha, I have a present to give you." And I thought, oh, I just can't wait. And she had a bag, and she pulled this blouse out along with a couple of other things, and she bought it at the Paris flea market. It is so beautiful. I cannot wait for you to see all the details. And by the way, thank you, Lezette. The collar is one of the high collars that was so typical of the 1890s, 1900s. The two beautiful pieces of lace. I absolutely love the way the front is done. It has the tucks, about an 1/8 inch tucks, and then the beautiful lace tucks. Now here's how this was made. The tucks were put down first, and with the lace in between it, and then the cross pieces of lace were added after this was added. So you can see the first piece was fabric and tucks, and then the cross pieces. Look at the sleeves on this blouse. The beautiful wide lace has been stitched on where each piece just barely overlaps the other piece. Absolutely gorgeous. And then the cuffs have one piece of the lace insertion and gathered lace edging. Now I have a surprise. Let's turn it around to the back. Oh my goodness, it is just as beautiful on the back. The top with that bone stay is fastened with little hooks and eyes. Then these beautiful buttons that actually are lace covered buttons. And once again, the back is just as beautiful as the front with the tucks and the lace work and one piece of lace on top of the other. It is totally handmade. And the buttons go all the way down, but at the very bottom, there is another hook and eye, which is really very interesting, the way that these were constructed with both buttons and hooks and eyes. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I'd like for you to come back next time.